Oh god, hold on, y'all. For some reason I can't change the orientation on this one. Thought I had Sanchez's picture in here. Guess I don't. Oh well. Trying something new for a change. What up, what up? I apologize, y'all. I'm doing a little bit of struggle streaming. Forgive me, forgive me. This is basically just a stream on Mark Sanchez, and the question I want to know, along with y'all, is basically what the f happened. So with that being said, shout out to the lawyer you know, and let's go.
What's up, everybody? Welcome back into an episode of The Lawyer You Know. Shocking allegations from this weekend. Former NFL quarterback Mark Sanchez was reportedly in the hospital in serious condition, and then later we find out he was actually arrested in this incident. We're going to talk about what the factual allegations are here, what his possible defenses may be, what kind of time he's looking for, and why this type of case gets such a national spotlight on it, and will that affect how the case is litigated and potentially the outcome. Let's get to it. So it's not every day that an NFL star, former star, if you want to call that, I know people have their feelings about Mark Sanchez, but
He wasn't that
it's
much of a
pretty
star,
wild that
bro.
he's in
I just
Indianapolis to
gotta tell you,
call an
he
NFL
was not
football
that
game,
much of a
and these
star.
reports start trickling out. And immediately everybody is really concerned. It's kind of a frightening situation when you hear that he has stab wounds and he's in critical condition in the hospital. There's just so many horrible things happening in today's day and age. It seems like there's just bad report after bad report. And then we start to get into some of the scenarios that people are saying he is actually a person of interest. He is actually potentially the person that may be the aggressor here. And everybody's just waiting, myself included, on what the heck happened.
Yeah.
What the heck happened? Why is Mark Sanchez being reported as the aggressor in this situation? He's a big guy, strapping guy still, 38 years old, not an old guy, even though he is retired. And so it was wild just from the jump. And everything that started to trickle out is like, oh, he got in a fight with a DoorDash worker or a truck driver or an Uber driver. There was like all these things coming out. So pretty quickly after, we hear he's been arrested for a few misdemeanors. And those misdemeanors are the criminal charges of battery resulting in an injury, public intoxication, and unlawful entry of a motor vehicle. Okay? So starts to open up a little bit about, what happened or what potentially happened, what the allegations are.
Hands would rather not get messy. They feed, they bathe, they play catch. That's why we made a baby wipe big enough to help protect them.
And then the probable cause affidavit comes out. And we start to get more of the details in this, in these allegations. So let's take a read with that first here. And it's not the biggest copy, so I'm going to read through it. Azam said it was blurry, and then she refreshed, and everything is fine now. So maybe hit the refresh if I am blurry. I am going to read this, so if you can't see it, don't worry about it. All right. On October 4th, 2025, at 12:35 a.m., IMPD officers were dispatched to 301 West Washington Street. By the way, anybody saying those aren't the final charges, I know. More charges came later, which we'll talk about that. What the additional charges are and how serious they are. When officers arrived at the Loftmiller's pub, you guys can correct me if that's not how you pronounce it, if anybody's from Indianapolis here, and eatery located at 301 Washington Street, they came in to contact with a male, later identified as Mark Sanchez, with several stab wounds to his upper right torso area. A second person was located in the alley west of the location near 50 Street, Senate Street, 50 South Senate Street, sorry. The second person, later identified as PT, had a laceration to his left cheek. PT is going to be the victim. They redact the victim's name here.
Okay.
He is an adult, so it's not like he's a minor. A laceration to his right cheek. That's going to be, sorry, left cheek. That's going to be important when we come later with more charges. EMS responded and transported Sanchez to the hospital in critical condition. They responded to Senate Street and transported PT to Methodist Hospital. An aggravated assault detective was requested to be paged through control by an officer on the scene, and Detective Joshua Staten was paged at 12:54 a.m. He spoke to Officer Anderson and was advised where the injured parties were going and coordinated with other aggravated assault detectives for responses accordingly. Edwards responded to the hospital where Sanchez was. Clayton went to Methodist to check on PT. Edwards responded to the hospital where Sanchez was to get a statement. He asked Mr. Sanchez what happened, and all he could remember was grabbing for a window. Mr. Sanchez said he did not know who did this to him or where it happened. Interesting on a number of levels. Didn't try to lie, didn't try to talk his way out of it, didn't try to blame somebody else or say, somebody did this to me, I didn't do anything wrong, what the heck happened? Didn't say any of that. Could also indicate, is he drunk, is he high, is something like that? Is he in shock because he's been stabbed and is in critical condition?
Keep listening.
So there's a lot of different things going on as far as what he said. Was he read Miranda? Did they think he was in a custodial interview? What exactly is happening there? So more potentially on that later. So somebody said they saw a photo. I heard this was going around. I did not see a photo. I actually wanted to see it, not for the gore, but again, because it's very important.
New York Post has the photos.
The facts and circumstances as to how we get the additional charge on top of these misdemeanor charges. All right, page 2 here. Staten responded to the scene and arrived at 1:10 a.m. Upon arrival, Staten was advised that the 2 hotels on either side of the alley where the incident occurred had surveillance video of the event, and thank God for that, right? Always great to have surveillance. The 2 hotels located on either side of the alley where the incident occurred were the Westin Hotel and the Indianapolis Marriott downtown. Staten went to these hotels, tried to get the video, but the quality was poor at the Westin. So then he went to the Marriott. A male sitting in a vehicle parked in the alley just north of the incident location stated he needed to leave. Detective Staten spoke with the male, who was identified as BB, who's just a witness. He stated that he was at the location picking up his kid when he saw a larger male wearing a black shirt and another male that was a truck driver interacting with each other. BB at first thought they were friends and didn't pay much attention to their interaction, as his vehicle was facing northbound and he was only observing through the side mirror. BB then thought it was odd because he thought the 2 men were using their cell phones to record each other. So is there going to be additional evidence on their cell phones? That's interesting. We'll have to see how that gets expounded upon. BB then said the 2 men went to the other side of the truck out of his view. Then he noticed that the truck driver tumbled over the opposite side of the curb and the male in the black shirt standing over him. BB thought that they might have wrestled or something. Then the male in the black shirt, which is Mark Sanchez, ran northbound in the alley and the truck driver stayed with the truck. BB did not see anything further, and he said he did not know what was happening, but assumed it was kind of serious because police started to show up. And then he was released. Staten relayed this information about the 2 parties involved possibly recording each other based on BB's statement, and Detective Sergeant Gray then applied for a warrant and was granted a search warrant to collect Mark Sanchez's phone and clothes from the hospital. The warrant was granted, and he collected the items, signed a chain of custody voucher, and transported them back to the aggravated assault office, where Staten later took custody and placed the items into the property room. Staten then reviewed the video from the Indianapolis Marriott downtown and saw a male believed to be Mark Sanchez jogging northbound in the alley from the direction of Maryland Street. Mr. Sanchez runs towards a large box truck that is backed into the loading docks at the Westin Hotel and goes behind the truck and then reappears, still heading northbound. Mr. Sanchez then heads to West Washington Street and is out of view for a little while. He then reappears, heading southbound, and approaches the delivery truck again and goes behind it before reappearing and approaching the driver's door. It should be noted, at this time, that PT is an employee for a company that specializes in commercial cooking oil recycling and disposal. And that's important because if he is there for a legal reason, parked and doing what he's supposed to be doing, even if he's parked, in a no parking zone, as they said in Greece, the whole place is a no parking zone, creative face. So even if he's just parked somewhere, maybe he shouldn't be parked there, whatever, he's there doing his job, he's working. And I appreciate that they don't just take the star NFL quarterback's word for it. We're not saying he is guilty of anything, but balance this. We're taking everybody's story and we're watching the video and trying to be objective about this, which I appreciate.
Some people just don't get it, that Squarespace isn't just for websites. You can get a domain from Squarespace too.
Watching the video and trying to be objective about this, which I appreciate. Mr. Sanchez approached the driver's side door of the truck, and by the way, now he's explaining what he's seeing on video. The driver's side door of the truck and opened the door and began a conversation with PT. Mr. Sanchez and PT stand by the driver's side door for a few minutes, and then PT walks over towards the security office doors of the Marriott. At this time, PT is out of view of the camera, and Mr. Sanchez is seen standing near the front truck. Moments later, PT reappears and walks toward the passenger side of the truck, and Mr. Sanchez follows him. Then PT is seen walking back to the driver's side, and Mr. Sanchez is right behind him. The two appear to have an interaction at the driver's side door, and then PT walks back toward the front of the truck. Mr. Sanchez is following him again, and PT is seen walking backwards away from Mr. Sanchez. PT and Mr. Sanchez are now seen moving around the front area of the truck. And then PT darts toward the driver's side again. Mr. Sanchez is seen running after PT, and the video shows Mr. Sanchez grabbing and throwing PT towards the wall of the Westin. It appears the two men are now fighting between the large metal green dumpster and the truck. The fight continues up against the dumpster, and then as a vehicle is driving southbound in the alley, the two men continue fighting and are now moving out towards the middle of the alley. Mr. Sanchez is then seen throwing PT to the ground on the western side of the alley just as the car passes. PT stands up from the ground, and Mr. Sanchez is seen standing there for a brief moment before turning and running northbound toward West Washington Street. Detective Staten took a statement from PT on October 4th, 2025. So now we're going to go talk to PT. We see the video. We've talked to Sanchez. Sanchez basically gave us nothing. I'm talking about us, we, as one of the cops, right? Sanchez gave us nothing. We're doing an objective investigation. I don't know if anybody knows it's Mark Sanchez at this point or who he is. I would assume at least some of the cops or somebody involved is like, yo, that's like Mark Sanchez. I don't know if you guys know who Mark Sanchez is. Myself, pretty big football fan. He's not Tom Brady, right? But big-time USC quarterback. Made the playoffs with the Jets against the Tom Brady Patriots. I'm sure all of my New England and Boston people in here know exactly who Mark Sanchez is.
But Fumble Sanchez.
Mark Sanchez is kind of a big deal. Like, people would know I would know Mark Sanchez if I saw him. He looks kind of like a normal guy, but big and has a very specific kind of look to him to where you would probably know who Mark Sanchez is. If you know who that is. Somebody just posted something I want to star. Kelsey, see if you can find the comment that he's suing Fox and Mark Sanchez. We'll talk a little bit about that aspect of it as well. All right, let's keep reading this. So what does PT have to say? Because we have the video, which if you're the cops and you watch it, it's like Sanchez definitely looks like the aggressor, but we also know he's in the hospital with stab wounds. Did PT go overboard? Did he use more force than is necessary? I don't know. Let's talk to PT and see what he has to say. What was going on in his mind? PT's statement closely matches the video Detective Staten watched from the Marriott. So that's the first sentence when describing what PT had to say. That it closely matches the video. That's obviously important. If you can corroborate somebody's statement, that makes your job as a cop a lot easier. With objective evidence. PT said Sanchez opened the driver's side door and PT exited the truck. Sanchez and PT had a conversation where Sanchez told PT that he could not be there at the loading dock, and that he, Sanchez, had spoken to the manager of the hotel. PT did not have his hearing aids in because his truck is very loud when he is exchanging the frying oil for the hotel, so he had to lean in close to Sanchez to hear it. It just makes me feel bad for him. 69-year-old guy that doesn't hear well. That makes me feel bad. And is he going to end up being a vulnerable victim of a certain age with a hearing issue? You know, is he really deaf or anything like that? That could get him into somebody that's a vulnerable victim, which could enhance the penalties in a lot of scenarios. Yeah, very weird that Mark Sanchez would care if a guy's parked in the wrong spot at a hotel. Like, I don't understand that. I don't understand why you... Like, if you saw some truck parked, maybe if you were trying to move your car or something, but if you're just walking by, it's very weird to, like, get involved there. But, all right, let's keep reading. When PT leaned in, he stated that Mr. Sanchez smelled of alcohol and his speech was slurred. So, this is a scenario where he is now telling law enforcement he's drunk.
He was
Which
intoxicated.
then, how can we corroborate that if we're law enforcement? Well, we went to the hospital and saw a guy in critical condition and he couldn't tell us how he got here. And if he couldn't tell us how he got here, maybe it's because who we did not recognize, that's fair, was well-dressed and groomed, so PT assumed he could be the manager of the hotel. So just some 69-year-old truck driver in Indianapolis didn't recognize Mark Sanchez at night while he's doing his job, right? And he assumed maybe he was even the manager of the hotel. Sanchez then climbed up into the cab of the truck, which is the unlawful entry into a vehicle, and leaned over the driver's seat and looked in towards the middle area between the seats. PT told Mr. Sanchez that he was not allowed to be inside the truck, and Mr. Sanchez came down. Mr. Sanchez kept repeating that he had spoken to the manager and they did not want PT to do that, replace the frying oil. Mr. Sanchez then tried to get into the... Let me pull up here.
Mm-hmm.
Next page. Truck, and PT stated again he could not let him in the truck. PT said that he knew at this time that he had a problem. So at this point, you've got Sanchez, who's a big guy, strapping guy, like I said, 38 years old. You know, if I'm a 69-year-old guy with hearing problems, trying to do my job, I'm starting to get a little afraid. He keeps yelling at me to move. He's clearly drunk. So we're starting to get into his subjective thinking here, like, I'm nervous. And would a reasonable person in PT's position right now be nervous? So you guys let me know, would you be nervous if you're trying to figure out, is it reasonable that he's starting to get nervous here? PT tried to get a cell phone from the truck, and Mr. Sanchez blocked him from trying to call his manager. PT then walked around the front of the truck. Mr. Sanchez followed him, but stood near the front of the truck. PT is seen walking westbound off camera to the opposite loading deck area of the Indianapolis Marriott downtown. PT stated that he knew that the entry point was the security office for the Marriott, so he was attempting to flag down one of the security officers to help him with Mr. Sanchez. All completely reasonable at this point. PT then walked toward the passenger side of the truck, and Mr. Sanchez walked with him. PT attempted to get into the passenger side of the truck, but was blocked by Mr. Sanchez. Okay, now, starting to get nervous, right? You're starting to get nervous. This guy is not letting you get back in your truck, not letting you get to your phone. You're trying.
So, in other words, Mark Sanchez was on his Mel Karen bullshit, is what you're saying. Yes? No? Maybe? Let's find out.
Trying to flag down security. He's trying to take non-physical measures to get out of here. Okay?
Exactly. Damn, I need to clip my nails. I'm still here, y'all.
PT walked around the driver's side and again attempted to get his cell phone from
Just
inside the
getting
truck,
ready
but
to
Mr.
clip my
Sanchez
nails.
shoved PT back. Now it's getting physical. PT realized things had escalated and he was now in physical danger. So he reached into his pocket. Thank God he had this stuff on him, right? Or who knows what would happen, allegedly. Grabbed his pepper spray and sprayed Mr. Sanchez in the face. PT said the
that's
pepper
what I
spray
would
appeared to have an
do.
effect on Sanchez for a moment, but Sanchez wiped his face and again advanced towards PT. PT thought, this guy is trying to kill me. The officer's putting this in here because, and recently, unfortunately, there's another story with a football player, the LSU wide receiver, that maybe I'll look into if you guys are interested in, where sometimes cops tell you what to write down to use the magic words. I'm not saying that's what happened here, but this guy is trying to kill me is pretty much magic words for self-defense. If you are going to use deadly force, if you're going to use deadly force against Mark Sanchez to protect yourself, you have to be in fear for your life. So the cops, put in quotes, this guy is trying to kill me is what he thought about Mark Sanchez. So what did he do? He pulled his knife. And here's the thing about what PT did. Tried to get his phone, tried to flag down a security officer, tried to get his phone again, used pepper spray, which is non-lethal.
He tried the right
when it
way.
didn't stop, he used potentially lethal methods. I would say using your knife the way he did is lethal methods.
Lethal method,
so he did rise to that level as far as getting to full self-defense. So he pulled his knife, and when Mr. Sanchez came at him, PT went at Mr. Sanchez and struck him 2 or 3 times with the knife. PT said he found himself flying back into the dumpster, falling onto the pallets on the ground. While he was on the ground, PT was not aware of what Mr. Sanchez was physically doing to him, whether he was punching him or otherwise striking him. So at this point, he's like blacking out. Like, I don't even know what's happening. But based on the injuries to his cheek and things like that, potentially he was getting punched in the face or otherwise. While PT was on the ground, he could only see the feet of Mr. Sanchez coming at him, making PT realize that he was in life or death situation. Again, cops putting the magic words in. Life or death situation. Somehow PT made it to his feet, and when Mr. Sanchez came at PT, he stabbed Mr. Sanchez one last time. The next thing PT knew was Mr. Sanchez looked at him with a look of shock. He slowly turned around, and Sanchez took off northbound in the alley. Officer Mark Mears, an evidence technician, processed the scene, taking photos and collecting evidence, which was taken to the property room. A search warrant was applied for the box truck by Detective Gray and granted under cause number whatever for the collection of the knife that was located on the driver's seat. Mark Sanchez was placed under arrest for battery, unlawful entry to a motor vehicle, and public intoxication. Now, those charges would later get upgraded, which we are going to talk about that in a second.
Mm-hmm.
But oops, sorry, say this. But right now, we're looking at evidence, subjective witness testimony evidence that is corroborated by multiple things. And when we talk about self-defense, this very easily could have been flipped. And PT could have gotten arrested for aggravated battery, aggravated assault with a deadly weapon, and could be having to prove that he acted in self-defense. But the videotapes helped a lot. And the fact that Mark Sanchez couldn't even tell the officers what happened, that oftentimes is how this goes. Now, both of them should have had lawyers. Both of them should have had lawyers helping them prepare their statement and tell their statement if they were going to give a statement.
Yep.
Because this really could have gone either way. But thank God for the video evidence. And what you do after, we talked about this with Nikolai Mew, and a lot of other cases, if you're going to claim self-defense, what you do immediately after the actions taken goes such a long way with law enforcement and with juries. And what did PT do? He didn't get rid of the knife. He didn't try to lie to change his story. He didn't flee. He didn't do all this stuff, right? The knife was right there. He talked to law enforcement. He tried to flag down security. He did all the things that you would think somebody would do if it was actually self-defense, right? So, then another video comes out, and I'm sure stuff is still trickling out, and you guys have probably seen things that I haven't seen. But this was something that I'm going to play with no video just because we don't necessarily need any commentary, but just to show us kind of, this is Mark Sanchez stumbling kind of through the alley, and you can't really see it, but there's like discoloration on the right side of his body, and he's kind of holding the right side of his body that's bleeding from the stab wounds. Okay? And so he's in bad shape. He's in bad shape, and I will say very easily could be stumbling from the stab wound itself, right? Obviously. Or he could be stumbling if he's intoxicated. So all of that is going to be something that is going to be fleshed out in court. And yeah, very critical condition. I think he's still in critical condition. I think he may be stable at this point. But eventually, they upgrade the charge. So instead of a bunch of misdemeanors,
I gotta come in and pause it for a second. This here was about around the time when Mark Sanchez was still in the hospital. Mark Sanchez is out. He did spend some time in jail, and think he has to go back to court. Think sometime in November. Don't quote me on that, but I believe that he has to go back in November. With that being said, let's continue.
upgraded to what they call in Indiana a level 5 felony, which is a felony charge of battery resulting in a serious violent injury. So how do we get coming with a serious violent injury?
Denied.
The cheek injury to the victim, any other injuries from being thrown around on the rest of his body, there are pictures, there is evidence for them to prove, at least they believe, right, prosecutors at this point, that they can prove a level 5 felony. And a level 5 felony is usually in Indiana a punishment of 1 to 6 years in prison and fines, etc., etc. Misdemeanors are usually less than 1 year. So much, much more serious. Much more serious. And I can try to see real quick. I don't know if we want to show the pictures, but okay, so yeah, I see the picture. We don't need to show it on here, but very obviously, this is something I can tell you as a lawyer. If I had this picture of this guy, which if you just Google it, you can see it, the truck driver, he definitely looks older. He definitely looks smaller than Mark Sanchez.
Yeah.
And the cut across his cheek is not like a slice when you cut yourself shaving.
No.
Okay? A very
No.
serious gash across his cheek, blood elsewhere, and he's in a neck brace while at the hospital. So
Yeah.
I will tell you, as a lawyer who proves this stuff on the civil side, and I've proved serious injury on the criminal side, this, in my opinion, would amount to something that you'd be able to prove was a very serious injury. Okay? A very serious injury to this victim. I think that the prosecution, using this picture, would have a good chance to prove that. So they're starting to get to the elements of this crime. We're also in a second going to listen to a press conference with the state attorney and law enforcement investigating this case. But first, I just want to show you Mark Sanchez here has, I can assume, hired a good private lawyer. He has the funds to do so. And they have already filed a request to waive an initial hearing and set a pretrial conference. The defendant's been, he's already out on bond. It's like $300 or something, because again, it was a couple misdemeanors, no big deal. I don't know if he had to post another bond once the felony was added. But the defendant has been advised of the following rights: the right to assistance of counsel and the right to have assistance at public defense. The right to a public and speedy trial, the right to a trial by jury, if requested, the right to require the state to prove the criminal charges beyond a reasonable doubt, the right to see, hear, and cross-examine all witnesses and evidence called by the state, the right against self-incrimination, the right to compel witnesses to attend and testify on the defendant's behalf, and the right to appeal if convicted after trial. Mr. Sanchez has been advised by counsel to the nature of the charges filed and the possible penalties. Upon acceptance and this waiver, the court will enter a plea of not guilty, which will commence the running of certain deadlines within the next 10 days. Sanchez also requests this matter be set for a pretrial conference, and Sanchez has been advised that he shall be required to appear in a pretrial setting. So he's going to have to come back to Indiana for his pretrial, which I believe has been set for November 4th. So about a month from now, which is
Okay, November 4th. Okay, I thought it was on the 3rd.
Yeah, he's been released. I don't know why he's been released. I forgot that. But yeah, thank you, chat. Chat's always great to keep us honest here. So a felony and 3 misdemeanors, probably as a lawyer. We're going to listen to the press conference now. And then, actually, let me answer some questions first. Everybody hit the like button. Please hit that like button if you haven't already. I should have said that earlier.
Yep, hit the like button, hit the like button.
Let's, all right, so I'm going to answer a few questions here, and then we're going to listen to the press conference. Maria said, please put your DNA on that like button. Also, this is the best YouTube channel and lawyer to subscribe to. Thank you, Peter, for covering this. Thank you, Maria. And yes, please, everybody, hit that like button. Dang it, I just accidentally unstarred the Is He Suing Fox? Tyler said, I really thought when the story broke it was a random attack on a retired QB player, but I wasn't expecting this. Thanks for covering. Yeah, I was too. I think that's what most people were thinking is, holy cow, what happened to Mark Sanchez? I feel so bad for Mark Sanchez. What's the difference misdemeanor versus level 5? So the difference is in punishments, right? So the punishment is more severe for level 5, and then a level 5 felony, then a misdemeanor. But if you're asking how we got to a level 5, like there was already a battery. Why now are we a felony instead of a misdemeanor when we already had the battery? It's the serious bodily injury element. So you can have a misdemeanor battery and, punch somebody in the face, or like we saw, scrapes on the knuckles, or like things that are not so serious. But when you have these types of injuries, it can upgrade it to a felony. Also, if it's a vulnerable victim, that can also upgrade it to a felony. Peter, would police check for drugs and alcohol on Sanchez? They would probably check his person, I would assume, incident to arrest, if they're able to, if he's in critical condition. Sometimes there are issues with that. But I think they're also going to check his blood, because he's at the hospital. They'll do a warrant for his blood, and they'll see everything that was in his blood. Wonder how many head injuries Sanchez has had. So I saw some people talking CTE. I am not an expert on that at all. I don't know. Sure, I guess it could come into it. We'll see if that plays a part in his defense. And he says, Judge, that is a reason why if I take a plea deal, I should get some kind of lesser sentence. Mary C., thank you so much for gifting 5 Lawyer memberships. That's awesome of you. I really, really appreciate it. So when we're looking at the crimes charged, Mark Sanchez can plead guilty and work out some kind of deal. To my knowledge, he doesn't have a past or a prior history, so potentially he could get no jail time and some kind of slap on the wrist. But, being a convicted felon is not a good thing for anybody. He could fight it. And his obvious defense would be, it was self-defense for me against him. He was mouthing off to me. He sprayed pepper spray for no reason. I thought he was going to keep spraying pepper spray. So I threw him. I was trying to get away from him, and then he stabbed me. Not sure that's what the video is going to show, but that could be his defense potentially. Or he could just defend it on a you can't prove it type of deal, right? From my perspective, in these kinds of cases with these kind of defendants, it's going to be working out some kind of plea deal. Maybe you plead to the 3 misdemeanors and they drop the felony. I don't know. But that would probably be my guess if I had to make a guess right now. Well, let's take a listen as to how seriously they're going to pursue this. Are they going to make an example out of him? Is this going to be a scenario where they're going to want to make sure like justice is the same for everybody type of deal? So we're going to watch this press conference here now, speaking about the Mark Sanchez situation.
Chief of the Indianapolis. Morning, everyone ready? Well, thank you for being here. I am Chris Bailey, the Chief of the Indianapolis Metropolitan Police Department. Here with me today is Marion County Prosecutor Ryan Mears. Prosecutor Mears will provide a rundown of the facts as we know them at this time. And then after that, I'll come back up for some additional comments, and then we can answer some questions. Prosecutor?
Thank you, Chief. Once again, my name is Ryan Mears. I'm the Marion County Prosecutor here in Indianapolis, Indiana. And for those of you who are...
So he is the head guy at the office, the head prosecutor.
How the criminal justice system works here in Indianapolis. On Saturday, we were presented a probable cause affidavit from IMPD that kind of contained an initial outline of the allegations that occurred early Friday night, early Saturday morning involving the defendant, Mark Sanchez. An initial probable cause affidavit was filed, and we made a preliminary charging determination based on that information. As is always the case, Chief and his team continued to work on this matter, continued to track down additional details for us, and really supplemented that probable cause affidavit. I cannot say enough good things about the work that took place at IMPD. There's a ton of information to sift through and gather. They did an excellent job of acquiring that information, and as a consequence of that effort, we received an amended or an additional probable cause affidavit this morning. Again, this is something that happens in virtually every case here in Marion County, and with that additional information, we have added more serious charges against Mr. Sanchez. At this point in time, we have filed a felony charge, a level 5 felony of battery involving serious bodily injury, which contains a penalty of 1 to 6 years. One of the things that I want to stress to everybody is that we are still in the early stages of this investigation.
And that's important, right? Because they're going to go through phones, they're going to look for more security cameras, they're going to look for witnesses that are on the security
They're gonna
cameras.
do all
they're
that.
going to get his blood draw to see what's in his blood. So there's so many things still to do in this investigation, but they feel like with what they have, they can prove the charges that they've filed so far. Those charges can be upgraded, downgraded, changed, subtracted, added to. So many things can still happen. And if he's got a really good private lawyer, that defense lawyer can affect what charges stick and what charges actually go forward on. What charges they go forward on. So that's all still really important and yet to happen. Maria, thank you so much for gifting 5 more Lawyer memberships, and I love the wolf hat. I'm wearing mine right now as well in this video that you have in your profile picture.
chief and his team have a number of search warrants that are still outstanding. They're still tracking down additional information. This is by no means the end of this investigation. This by no means means that these are going to be the final charges that we move forward with. We could not have done this case and be in a position to make today's charging decision without the hard work of IMPD and people in the community who came forward with information and pointed us in the right direction, and who gathered a ton of information. One of the challenges you have in a case like this is the fact that you're dealing with individuals who are receiving medical care, and that's obviously the most important thing, that individuals are treated appropriately. But once we were provided with additional information about the victim's current medical condition, it became clear to us that additional charges needed to be filed. There's a supporting probable cause affidavit which was filed with the court today, which outlines the additional information which we have received thanks to the effort of IMPD, and that's why we were able to file the charges. A couple of things just about this incident. Certainly the thing that stands out to us is this was a situation that did not need to occur. You have the allegations involve a 38-year-old man becoming involved in an altercation with a 69-year-old man who sustained significant and very severe injuries as a result of that altercation. The probable cause outlines kind of the initial nature of that dispute. We were literally talking about people fighting over a parking space, and we're a dispute about what.
So then, did he want the parking space? I don't get it.
Where people are marking, and it resulted in some.
Yeah, he made it seem like it was about Sanchez wanting the parking space. It's very weird, very strange how we got here.
Someone receiving just incredibly significant injuries. Where this incident took place was an area of the city which was very well covered by surveillance footage. There are multiple angles of surveillance footage which capture the events that occurred. And in addition, we had a number of
multiple angles of camera footage. Multiple angles. And my guess is they're not done searching for camera footage.
Witnesses who came forward with provided information about what took place. For us, though, we need additional information, and the chief's team is working on that. And once we receive that additional information, additional charges might be appropriate to file. In a case like this, one of the things.
So he leaves it open that even more charges could be filed. If I'm Sanchez's lawyers, I don't like the sound of that. So I want to cooperate as much as I can. Get the video, look at the video, see how bad it is. If it is that bad, you start working. What deal can we make? How can we spin this? How can he take responsibility? How can he overcome it? How can he do some good with it? How can he build some goodwill with the victim? Because here's the thing, you're Mark Sanchez. You can build a lot of goodwill with the victim. There's going to be civil suits and things like that, which we're going to talk about after this press conference, but you can still do a lot of good. You have opportunities as a famous quarterback and commentator that a lot of people don't have, and access to do a lot of community service that us regular people wouldn't necessarily have, and you should absolutely do that.
That you are considering is where people are coming from, where were people going, what were they doing, and then once individuals receive medical care, we're obviously very interested in what those medical records look like, because they can a lot of times give us greater insight into what was going on that day and potentially provide some information into an individual's state of mind. And so with that, I'll turn it over to Chief Bailey.
Thank you, Prosecutor. First and foremost, I want to say that my thoughts and prayers are with the victim in this case and his family as he is on the road to recovery. I also want to just express just how proud I am of the officers and detectives of this police department who, those early morning hours of Saturday, rushed in to provide medical care and find out what was going on, and then spent the next really 2 full days putting this case together to present to our partners at the Marion County Prosecutor's Office. All of them, including deputy prosecutors, including the prosecutor himself, worked all weekend nonstop to bring those initial charges. And as he said, we continue to work on this case to find additional information, additional evidence, and additional witnesses to make this case stronger. The professionalism that we saw from our teams is what makes this department one of the best in the city, one of the best in the country. And their commitment to our community and keeping downtown and every neighborhood in our city safe was evident. Downtown Indianapolis remains a safe and welcoming environment for the people that live here and the people that visit here. It remains one of our safest neighborhoods. To date, violent crime is down 5% in downtown. Property crime is down 11%. Overall crime is down 10%. And across our city, violent crime is down 21%. That is because of the hard work of all of our partners in the criminal justice system, including Prosecutor Mears and the work of our detectives, the work that we see from our Office of Public Health and Safety, and the work of our boots on the ground community-based organizations who every day are doing their part to make our cities safe. But I want to be clear about this. I don't care who you are. I don't care what you do for a living. I don't care where you live. If you come into our city, commit violence, we will use all the tools at our disposal to hold you accountable. As we move forward, IMPD will continue to maintain our strong, visible presence in downtown on those high visibility, high traffic weekends and major events to make sure that our community is safe. And I continue to urge our community to respect one another. As the prosecutor said, this did not need to happen. It just did not. We need to recognize our differences, respect those differences, and deal with our conflict without resorting to violence, because it's just not worth it. I appreciate the cooperation of our community and the downtown residents and businesses who continue to support their police department, each other, and work with us to solve our problems. Thank you, and now we will take some questions.
Hi, Mayor's prosecutors. Are there any laws on the books that state that charges will be up based on a victim's age, especially elderly?
So traditionally, that's more of a statutory aggravator as it relates to sentencing. And so one of the things that the court can consider when they're trying to impose a sentence, as I mentioned, this is a level 5 felony, 1 to 6 years. One of the statutory aggravators is the age of the victim. And certainly that's something that the judge can consider when they're imposing a sentence.
Investigators take the BAC level from Sanchez.
Well, anytime anyone's admitted to the hospital, there's a number of things that are conducted just kind of a matter of routine, a matter of procedure. And I think as you work through the process, certainly their health records are protected. We have to go through that process of making sure that any information that we receive is obtained through the proper channels. And I know Chief Steve's working on that.
Do we know if investigators have had a chance to talk to Dan Sanchez's associates, piece together what his Friday night was like before this happened?
I can't answer exactly what step in the process the investigators are at, but as the prosecutor mentioned, just because charges are filed doesn't mean the case or the investigation stops. So the investigators will be looking into all those things, and I think the medical records are going to be extremely important for both individuals to help the prosecutor make an important.
Okay, I'm back, y'all. Sorry about that.
Some other way to, I know the charge needs to be added, but also to see if there was some sort of altered state of mind of the individuals involved in this incident.
Well, you know his state of mind was altered. Mark Sanchez was drunk.
Assigned to a misdemeanor level 6 court with the additional charges. This case will be transferred to a major felony court, and then it would be up to that major felony court to make the determination as to whether or not a bond should be imposed. Again, these new charges are supported by an amended probable cause affidavit, which goes into way more detail about what took place on that night, and also more clearly outlines the nature and extent of the victim's injuries in this case.
How does the state's self-defense law play into this and the allegations?
Well, certainly Indiana has some of the most robust self-defense laws in the nation, and that's always going to be part of the equation when you evaluate cases like this and trying to determine exactly what took place. And it will certainly be at the center of this particular trial as well when we have conversations about were people acting reasonably or not. And in Indiana, you have no duty to retreat. And so those are all things that you need to consider in terms of when you make that initial charge.
They obviously considered that with the victim's actions and with Mark Sanchez's actions.
Yeah.
But do we know the whole story? Is there more we don't know? Is there something the camera doesn't show?
Right.
Mark Sanchez is presumed innocent. His attorneys are going to have the opportunity to present a self-defense claim if they believe one exists here. Right? A lot of that can happen still, because we don't know all the details. We just know one side of the story. We know what the police probable cause affidavit says. Is there going to be changes in the victim's story? Does it actually line up with what the video camera shows, or does it not? So many still open questions. We have to remember that as we go.
Decision. Those facts have been evaluated, and certainly the self-defense law is going to be an issue that will be raised at trial.
My question.
You plead for back for 3 years criticizing the governor for his quick take the political game. What's your reaction?
Well, for me, the most important thing is that we get information out there that is accurate. And anytime people come to conclusions and don't rely on facts, that's obviously disappointing. For us, though, we have conversations about what's taking place in Marion County. When those types of things are said, it's not really an attack on me. It's an attack on 20 people who work in the prosecutor's office who are dedicated to their job. And we've won 31 out of our last 34 murder trials. We've won the last 10 murder trials in a row. And if the governor has conversations about what's going on in Marion County, not only can he look to those, he has an open invitation to come to the prosecutor's office and not only meet with me, but the people who are in the courtroom every single day fighting.
Always a good political battle between the governor and the district attorney
for those convictions. We don't get those records and we don't get those results without Chief Bailey's help, without the community's help. And so if the governor thinks that he can add to that conversation, if he says, hey, there's additional things that can be done to help, we always want to have that conversation. Where I think my frustration sometimes comes from is everybody's quick to blame and point fingers. We need substantive responses that actually address the challenges that we're facing and give everybody the tools and resources that they need to be successful. I feel very comfortable with where we are in terms of our murder conviction rate, but we can't do that without Chief Bailey. We can't do that without the community. And if the governor thinks he can assist, he's got an open invitation to come.
Thank you all. We appreciate your time. Thank you.
For both Ryan and Chris, considering Indiana is a constitutional carry state, and as you pointed out, self-defense statute is very broad, how lucky are we that somebody's not dead of a gunshot?
Well,
I mean, I mean, we've seen over the last several years the number of cases that have to be screened from the prosecutor's office and look through the lens of self-defense, I think, go up. And that's because a lot more people are armed and protecting, which is the right
Exactly.
that they have. But when conflicts, which I've said repeatedly, continue to drive violence in our community, simple conflicts over things like parking spots, and the list goes on and on that we've seen over the last several years, these tragic cases that turn violent because someone has a weapon of any sort. But we're lucky that no one's dead right now as a result of this incident that involved a knife. But certainly more people have guns, and we have to be mindful of that as we start and deal with conflict in our community.
And that's a really important word. And I will say, as lawyers, we really deal with it differently, obviously. Even if you use deadly force like what he did in this case, make no mistake about it, the victim, who right now is the alleged victim, did use deadly force with his knife. People are asking where the knife came from. Ashley asked it. Somebody else asked it. It says he took it from his pocket. So he had pepper spray and a knife. So it did not result in a death, thank God. This case, death is different. The case will be looked at differently. If it did, and the scrutiny may be different, maybe the result wouldn't be. Obviously, there wouldn't be, charging a dead person, but a very different set of circumstances. My cat's name is Karen said, Peter, would you suggest he plead guilty? Absolutely not. I have no clue. I don't know enough about the case to ever be able to make this decision for somebody that's not my client. If he pleads guilty, I think there is so much that he can do to help his sentence and make it end up being no jail time. Like, even if you're not Mark Sanchez, because everybody's going to say rich guy, getting off, famous person, this is our justice system. Very normal people that have hired us for cases very similar to this with no criminal history. If you do the right things, you can end up with a very good deal to give you a second chance, because if this is your worst moment ever in your life, right? Usually, if it's something like this and this was the result, you don't send somebody to prison for 6 years. And the make it right and the things that you can do, so much of it has to do with the victim himself. What are you doing for the victim? What are you doing for restitution? What are you doing to make that right? What are you doing to make the streets here safer? What are you doing to better yourself? Is there alcohol issues? Are there CTE issues? Whatever, right? That's what you really have to look at: rehabilitating your image, fixing what you did, making the wrong right as much as you can, which is a perfect segue into the potential civil litigation here. Michael said public perception is going to be entitled rich former QB assaults elderly working man. I don't know if it's gonna be or it already is that, right?
Yeah, I think it already is
going
that.
down that road.
I think it
And
already
that could be
is
something
that,
that's really
bro.
bad for Mark Sanchez. And if a lawsuit is filed civilly, that's going to make it even worse, right? So if he is going to plead guilty, and I'd have a lot of conversations with him if he's my client, like, what are you going to do? Because the sooner we jump on this, the better. If we're going to fight it, we've got to fight it certain ways. If we're not going to fight it, let's try to bring the victim in. Let's talk about these civil claims. Let's see if we can get it settled. If you can get it settled, make it part of your accepting of responsibility. You tell the judge, I'm responsible. I did this. I paid him. I made it right. Maybe as part of this, he'll come and testify that, like, Mark Sanchez made it right. I appreciate it. He's doing stuff for my hometown, my charity, whatever, right? You can be very creative on how to get this done and do the right thing if he is admitting to doing this and he says he did. I don't know that he did, but if that's the road, there's a lot of things that you can actually do. So let's talk about some different places that they can sue. Number one is Mark Sanchez himself.
You don't know anything about me.
Whose fault is that?
Julia Roberts delivers the performance of her career.
You are not entitled to any information about me and my life.
Two. Number one is Mark Sanchez himself. Personally, if he is the bad actor, you can sue somebody personally here. Many times people don't get sued personally because they don't have enough money to pay a verdict, and you spend all this money going and getting $1 million verdict against them, and they don't have any money, so you're out $50,000, $100,000, however much you spent to get that piece of paper that said he owes you $1 million. Well, Mark Sanchez can write that check. And so I would be shocked if there are not already some civil claims or very soon after civil lawsuits being filed against Mark Sanchez for the bodily injuries that he allegedly caused. Because if Mark Sanchez says self-defense in the criminal case, self-defense can also work in the civil case as well. If there is a real civil self-defense claim there for Mark Sanchez. Would it be reasonable that he's scared of this guy that's 69 years old? He had a knife. I think he could be, right? Number two, I saw people asking, can he sue Fox? And that's an interesting legal question. From my answer has to be, it depends. I don't see it like off the top of my head. Is he doing something in furtherance for Fox? Is he on the clock the whole weekend? Did he come from a Fox party where they were drinking? Like, you have to have like a nexus connecting this to Fox somehow, some way. Just because he was going to go commentate the game on Fox the next day, to me, so people are saying he actually has sued Mark and Fox. So I'd like to see the civil lawsuit as to how he's connecting Fox as being vicariously liable. So that would be interesting to me. Then John and a couple other people said, is there a potential Dram Shop Act violation? So most people think of Dram Shop Act as car accident, right? Somebody's drinking, you overserve them, either they're a minor, in some states they have to be a minor, or in other states that they were visibly and obviously intoxicated and you continue to serve them drinks. But it's not just going out and driving a car and causing an accident. It can also be a fight like this, John, so that's a very astute question of yours. And so theoretically, there's a potential Dram Shop case here, but there's a lot of nuance and there's a lot of details and hoops you have to jump through. Did they overserve him? Was he obviously physically intoxicated? Who's going to be able to testify to that? What did they serve him once they knew? You know, it could be, he's a famous person. We don't stop serving famous people. We give them whatever they want, free drinks, whatever. But there's a lot of elements that have to be proven in order to get to that Dram Shop potential case, but it's not out of the question. Because I don't think Indiana has that bar to where it has to be a minor. Maybe it was the statement made by Fox making it seem like Mark was the victim. So a misunderstood statement that says Mark was the victim, not necessarily calling the victim the perpetrator and naming him and things like that, is more difficult than if they said like PT was the, and it's funny, I think his initials are PT, now I'm getting confused because my initials are PT. But it's like PT is the bad guy, here's a picture, this is the guy we need to get, he needs to go to prison. That would obviously be different than, just saying that Mark Sanchez is the victim or even assuming that Mark Sanchez is the victim. Mo said, LOL, Peter, it might just be me, but now it's so HD that you almost look 3D when you stretched your hand out, LOL. Yeah, the internet's doing weird things here tonight. I don't know why. Yes, he was in town for the Fox Sports game, so Fox brought him here, I guess. Potentially, I guess. I could see some avenues there. I could see some avenues connecting Fox there, but they have to connect Fox in order to get it done. I'd like to see the contract and when he has to arrive and what he has to do, and is he on the clock and then off the clock? Is it a work trip? I would argue, yes, it is a work trip. I like that. I think that's creative legal analysis. Peter, can you cover the Kyron Lacey accident report? So this is the LSU wide receiver I mentioned before. So much going on in this case. I might want to talk to his lawyer because his lawyer's going out there doing some shows now. I might want to talk to his lawyer because I don't want to get anything wrong there. So much has been reported has been wrong. Police reports have been wrong. I saw the body cam footage, which doesn't seem to match the police report at all. I saw the video, which makes no sense to me. He had a lawyer who seems like a really good lawyer, having conversations with your client. So if you feel that way, good night. How does it end the way it does? And for people that don't know, Kyron Lacey, potential NFL draft pick, LSU star wide receiver. If you know who Jamar Chase is and Justin Jefferson is and Brian Thomas Jr., like star LSU wide receivers just crushing in the NFL. He was supposed to be the next one. He gets arrested on suspicion of causing this deadly accident. And then it comes out that he was way far away when the accident happened. And the cop basically coached the witness into saying he was the bad guy in all of this. And he ended his own life over it. So sad. Brutally sad, horribly sad. I hate it. If you guys are interested, I will look into it. I really haven't had a ton of questions about it. There's been some connected with obviously talking about Mark Sanchez, but a lot more Mark Sanchez questions recently. But I'd like to get his lawyer on to potentially talk about it because he is going out there trying to raise awareness. And man, I remember when I heard it happened to him, it was just brutally sad, man, like soul crushing that people.
Get any pizza with any toppings for just $9.99 online. Try the Domino's viral pizza or invent a new one.
People can get so down and feel so hopeless with something like this. And I get it. I was talking to some other lawyer buddies about it. And he's like, when you have everything ahead of you and you think you're going to like be a first round draft pick and an NFL star, and then now you feel like it's all going to be taken away. And I've had clients who feel like they've had everything taken away, and I've had these conversations with them. And when we have a good case, I'm like, trust me, man, we got this. We're going to fight. I'm going to give it everything I have. It's very, very brutal to think about. So we'll see if we break that down. Let me know in the chat or in the comment section if you're interested in that case. Make sure you guys all hit that like button if you haven't already.
And here's the second part.
On the Mark Sanchez case. What's up, everybody? Welcome back into the episode of The Lawyer You Know. And today we are going to break down the entire lawsuit against Mark Sanchez and Fox. Specifically, we're talking about how the lawyer got this turned around so quickly, like a day after the event happened. And is there real liability against Fox? Those are the two big questions most people have. Of course, we're going to break down the allegations against Mark Sanchez personally as well and answer so many of the questions that have already come in on Twitter, on Instagram, on YouTube about this lawsuit and this case and what we know now. So as we bring up this lawsuit to discuss, in civil court, things are so much different than criminal court. In civil court, you as the victim and the victim's attorney, which is the type of work I usually do, right on the plaintiff side in injury cases. A lot of times it's a wrongful death case, a trucking accident, a car accident case. These are the types of cases that I handle, but battery also fits into that. And negligent security fits into that. Was there proper security at the place? Negligent hiring. Did an employee do something that you knew or should have known they were going to do and you didn't guard against it? You didn't train better or train enough. You didn't set up enough precautions in place to protect people from your employees. What were they actually doing at the time? These are all kinds of cases that I handle. But what's important is so many cases you have to do a serious investigation before you can get enough facts to file a lawsuit and move it forward in court. So while oftentimes it doesn't take as long to start a case as a criminal case, sometimes criminal cases are quicker, civil cases are quicker. It all depends. But the plaintiff's lawyer and the plaintiff themselves, the victim in these cases or alleged victim, usually can drive the timeline. And sometimes it happens very quickly. And I think some of the reasons for why you would want to do this so quickly if you're the victim are obvious. Everybody's talking about this case now. Most people are not fond of what they believe Mark Sanchez's actions to be in this case. He is presumed innocent in the criminal court system, and these are just allegations in civil court. He has not been found liable in any court of law at this point. So while these allegations, as you read a complaint, are taken as true when the judge looks at them for things like motion to dismiss, it doesn't mean this is exactly how it happened, exactly how it was in the probable cause affidavit, exactly what all the reports are saying, or exactly what's going to be in this complaint. We don't know that to be true. But to try and figure out how he could possibly have claims against Fox, and could he possibly have claims against Mark Sanchez, which seems very obvious at this point, we're going to read these facts as he sets them out in this complaint. So Perry Toll is the alleged victim versus Mark Sanchez and Fox Corporation. The complaint for damages and jury trial demand. So these are literally the types of complaints that we write. They don't always look exactly like this one looks, but to break this down is feeling like I'm talking about what I do every day, right? So, by the way, make sure you guys hit that like button. If you're ready to talk about another civil case and a civil complaint, we always love when that happens for just a civil lawyer, as they say. And if you're new to the channel, that's a joke. I do a lot of criminal defense in my career before. I focus primarily on civil now. 99% of my practice is civil is what I say. My firm still does a lot of criminal defense. My dad's one of the best criminal defense attorneys all time in this state. We've prosecuted cases. My dad, myself, JD, we're all on that side and on this side. Another one of our lawyers, Pete, was a public defender, worked at the public defender's office before coming and doing this. We've got a lot of criminal defense in our firm as well. And a lot of the cases we talk about on this channel, including the parallel case for Mark Sanchez, is a criminal case, but it's always interesting when the civil case follows along, especially this quickly. So let's take a read. Comes now the plaintiff, Perry Toole, by counsel Eric J. May of whatever his firm name is, I can't pronounce, Golitko and Daly, and for his complaint for damages and jury trial demand against the defendants Mark Sanchez and Fox Corporation. Jurisdiction. This court has jurisdiction over this matter pursuant to the laws of the state of Indiana as the events giving rise to this complaint occurred in Indianapolis, Marion County, Indiana. That's just determining where this action took place, where the damage took place usually is the proper jurisdiction, since the fight or battery, whatever you want to call it, happened in Indiana, Marion County. That's why we're in Marion Superior Court. The parties, who's involved here? First, we have the plaintiff, Perry Toole. He's an individual residing in the state of Indiana who was the victim of the action described herein. The defendant is Mark Sanchez, hereinafter referred to as Sanchez, is an individual who, upon information and belief, resides in the state of California and was involved in the incident described herein. Number 4, Fox Corporation is a foreign corporation that, upon information and belief, is incorporated in the state of Delaware and is the employer of defendant Sanchez.
I broke my wedding vow to never watch a movie without my wife.
Incorporated in the state of Delaware and is the employer of defendant Sanchez. We're not going to talk about how corporations, why they incorporate in Delaware. It's a very normal thing for these corporations to be there, not in California where a lot of people think it happens, but we'll get into that maybe another day. So, okay, here are the factual allegations. Defendant Sanchez is an employee of the defendant Fox Corporation. Defendant Sanchez traveled to the state of Indiana as part of his employment duties for the defendant Fox Corporation and the television broadcast of the NFL football game involving the Indianapolis Colts and Las Vegas Raiders on Sunday, October 5th, 2025. So, from all reports, and being a football fan myself and listening to Mark Sanchez call games, this seems normal that he is on one of the Fox broadcasts. This is where they were at this Sunday. He's going to call this game. That all seems fine. This is part of his job. This is what he was hired to do. None of that seems outlandish. I understand that. We understand the connection between Fox and Mark Sanchez at this point, according to these factual allegations. Now, we haven't seen anything that gives rise to any civil liability, but we're just getting the connections and the background here of the parties. At all times relevant, plaintiff Perry Toole was performing his duties as an employee of a company specializing in commercial cooking oil, recycling, and disposal at the loading dock area of the Westin Hotel where he was approached by defendant Sanchez. So this paragraph is in there to explain that the plaintiff, aka the victim in this case, was there lawfully, doing nothing wrong, waiting to do his job when Mark Sanchez created this problem. That's what they're trying to tell us here in these allegations and these factual background. Defendant Sanchez, appearing intoxicated, instigated an altercation with plaintiff Perry Toole, claiming that plaintiff Perry Toole could not be at the location and that defendant Sanchez had spoken to the hotel manager. So, you might notice something else about these facts. They're going to sound a lot like what we read in the probable cause affidavit. And that is a reasonable basis to make these factual allegations. So they're never going to be able to say, oh, you know, you lied, or, I mean, I guess if there's anything Perry told them that is not true, then they could get him for that. But this is what's in the factual allegations. This is what witnesses corroborate. This is what law enforcement says the video showed. I don't even know if this plaintiff's lawyer has seen the video at this point. This would be awful quick for him to see the video. Sometimes law enforcement will cooperate like that, but if it's an open criminal investigation, which it seems to be, a lot of times they won't give us this stuff that early. Maybe they'll show it to us, maybe not. This is definitely something, the video of the altercation, you would get in discovery. I like to have it. I don't always have it before a lawsuit, I'll just tell you that. Sometimes defendants will have control of the video. They'll see the video. They will not share it with us until after we file a lawsuit and force them to in discovery. So it's not like every civil lawsuit you have to have the video first, but in an ideal world, you want to do as much of an investigation, get as many documents and witness statements as you can to be very confident going forward in your lawsuit. No way they were able to do a deep dive in this case prior to filing this lawsuit. Doesn't mean the lawsuit's a sham. It doesn't mean it's just a empty money grab. It doesn't mean there's anything wrong with this lawsuit. It just means it's different than cases where you do have a lot of time and you think it's necessary to put in that time to do the background investigation. They may think timing is of the essence, and by the way, this is what I would call a bare bones complaint. Not every complaint that we file is some incredibly complex legal document. We can easily turn complaints around in one day if we need to. Absolutely, and we have. Cases coming up in the statute of limitations, we do as quick of an investigation as we possibly can in order to protect the victim's rights. We have to file the lawsuit quick. A law change is going to happen. We've got to file the lawsuit tomorrow. We are able to do that as lawyers. Take the time necessary to draft these complaints, check all the boxes to make sure within the four corners of the complaint you do every single thing necessary in order to get the ball rolling, because a lot of times you can also amend complaints. If there's something you accidentally missed, if there's an allegation you want to add, if there's a count you want to add, you can amend the complaint. In most jurisdictions, you can amend it once without even asking the court. But most courts will allow you to amend the complaint as long as it's for a reasonable purpose. And a lot of times, opposing counsel won't even object to amending the complaint if it's for a reasonable purpose. So this might not be the final version of the document that they go to trial on, if, of course, it ever gets there, which I would guess it's not going to get there. Okay, during the interaction, defendant Sanchez attempted to enter and later entered plaintiff Perry Toll's work truck without permission and blocked plaintiff Perry Toll from accessing his cell phone to contact his manager. The situation escalated when defendant Sanchez physically blocked and shoved plaintiff Perry Toll, leading plaintiff Perry Toll to use pepper spray in self-defense. It's obviously important that that's in self-defense. And when we read what the actual causes of action, meaning what Perry Toll is suing Mark Sanchez and Fox for, they're going to marry these facts with the law to get us to those causes of action. So we're reading through the facts here still. I want to see how they put it together and legally get to where they say they are in this civil lawsuit. The situation escalated when, I already read that. Despite the use of pepper spray, defendant Sanchez continued to advance toward plaintiff Perry Toll, resulting in a physical altercation, which resulted in Perry Toll suffering significant injuries to his head, jaw, and neck. On October 4th, 2025, at approximately 12:35 a.m., officers from Indianapolis Metropolitan Police Department were dispatched to 301 Washington Street, Indianapolis, Indiana.
The new H2 Pro system separates clean and dirty water. The new H2 Pro from O-Cedar.
I don't love doing low lights with an acid color. With a low light, that's color that's going to...
Officers from Indianapolis Metropolitan Police Department were dispatched to 301 Washington Street, Indianapolis, Indiana. Upon arrival, officers found plaintiff Perry Toll bleeding profusely and severely injured. Defendant Sanchez was subsequently arrested for battery, unlawful entry to a motor vehicle, and public intoxication. So while this might not come in an actual civil trial, you put it in your complaint, you're allowed to put it in your complaint, but it's definitely not going to be something that the jury hears, unless there's a conviction, obviously, and you say he was convicted for this. But just being arrested for something, or somebody accusing you of something in criminal court, doesn't always come in and become relevant in the civil case. But this absolutely beefs up a civil complaint, especially if later the person pleads guilty or is convicted of those crimes. Then you can use it as res judicata, which means the criminal court with a higher burden has already determined he's guilty of this. So in civil court, the only thing left for us really to determine is, did what he was arrested for cause damages, and what is the amount of those damages, meaning how much money in civil court, because that's what you can go after in civil court. They can't throw Mark Sanchez in jail. That's for the criminal court, which we've already kind of broken down what's going on there and what he was arrested for. This is civil justice, money damages. Count 1, assault and battery. Plaintiff, so here now we get to the actual law and the cause of action. We read the 14 paragraphs of the facts. Now let's see what causes of action they feel they have against Sanchez and Fox. First is assault and battery. Plaintiff Perry Toll incorporates by reference the allegations contained in paragraphs 1 through 14 as if fully set forth herein, meaning paragraphs 1 through 14, they might as well be here in this cause of action. Defendant Sanchez intentionally and unlawfully made harmful and offensive contact with plaintiff Perry Toll, causing serious bodily injury. Defendant Sanchez's actions constitute malicious, willful, wanton, or grossly negligent conduct. As a direct and proximate result of the defendant Sanchez's actions, plaintiff Perry Toll suffered severe, permanent disfigurement, loss of function, other physical injuries, emotional distress, and other damages. So there's a lot of kind of interesting nuance here in what we've read, but intentional conduct, reckless conduct, offensive conduct, a lot of times that language is used in punitive damages situations, meaning not only are you going to get medical bills, pain and suffering, those are compensatory damages. Lost wages if he's got to miss work now as a truck driver and misses paychecks. All those things you can sue Mark Sanchez for under this, right? But intentional torts like assault and battery, usually you can also sue for punitive damages. What are punitive damages? They are in place to punish that wrongdoing and deter other people from doing what you claim this defendant did. So big, strapping, strong guys can't be going around punching people, throwing people around, yelling at people, whether they're drunk or not. And we've got to send a message here that these big, strong athletes can't be walking around to different cities and doing this to people. And we have to make sure Mark Sanchez himself doesn't do this again. So let's punish this bad behavior and make it hurt. Punitive damages have to hurt. So he knows not to do this again. He'll think twice about doing this again. That's how that kind of works. This one is easy assault and battery. If these allegations are true, and that's how we're going to look at the complaint when reading the causes of action. That's legally how you're supposed to. I'm not just choosing to do that. If the allegations are true, then an assault and battery claim is definitely going to survive a motion to dismiss and potentially get to a jury if they want to get there after discovery. If they don't settle the case, 90+% of civil cases usually settle. So that's count one. Let's go to count two. Negligent hiring, retention, and supervision. They incorporate paragraphs 1 through 18 now. Some courts allow you to incorporate other causes of action. Some don't. Some prefer you just say 1 through 14. But defendant, Fox Corporation. Okay, now we're talking about Fox. We were talking about Sanchez before. Now Fox. They owed a duty of care to plaintiff Barry Toll to ensure that its employees conducted themselves in a reasonable manner. So, first question, is this true? Does Fox owe a duty of care to just random people driving on the street? And generally the answer is yes. Every company owes a duty of care to make sure their employees aren't going out and battering people. They owe a duty of care to make sure that they have a safe environment, that they're training their employees, they're putting them in positions that'll be safe not only for the employees, but for other patrons. But it's very, very important because any of this vicarious liability you try to get on an employer, usually, and I can think of some circumstances where there are exceptions, right? But we're going to talk about the vast majority of these cases. Your employee has to be working within the scope of their employment, meaning if I'm a carpenter, I'm doing carpentry. I'm not throwing darts. I'm not throwing axes. I'm not driving race cars, right? Because that's not what the scope of my employment is, number one. And then number two, I have to be working in furtherance of your business, doing something to help your business. So if I'm a door-to-door salesperson, I'm knocking on doors and I've got your shirt on and your brochure, they open the door and I batter the person who opens the door, well, that's in the scope of your business and that's in furtherance of your business. But if I'm a door-to-door salesman and I'm drag racing on the weekends, that's not within the scope of my employment. That's not in furtherance of your business. So how are they really going to connect all this up? They've chosen here in count 2, negligent hiring, retention, and supervision. So they are correct that every company owes a duty to when their employees are working that they're not injuring other people. Defendant Fox Corporation knew or should have known about defendant Sanchez's unfitness as an employee, propensity for drinking, and or harmful conduct. So now is when we start to get into the biggest answer to your question, which is, does he really have a case against Fox? How could he possibly have a case against Fox?
Sound like he does.
It depends. We are absolutely going to need more facts. For example, if Mark Sanchez truly does have a history of while on these game weekends when he's calling games and doing things with Fox, getting drunk and beating people up, and Fox never did anything to stop him or protect other people or send somebody with him to make sure he doesn't drink too much or send security with him to make sure he's not going to do this and they can break up a fight. You know, I could think of all sorts of things that would be appropriate to stop a fight like this if they had knowledge, if they actually knew, or if they should have known. Meaning there's wild reports about this, you know, it's public knowledge. Maybe there's even some other civil lawsuits that, you know, Fox didn't know about it because they never read it, but they absolutely should have. It was easily accessible, and you would think you would want to look into this before you hire somebody.
I would think so.
I don't feel comfortable having this conversation with you anymore. Not everything is supposed to make you comfortable. Can't take it back once it's been said.
Did you know anything about this?
Or you hire somebody. So if they did know this and did nothing about it, potentially you can get that connection. Now, I don't know. I don't know this background about Mark Sanchez. I don't know if this is true or not. Maybe some of you guys watching have read articles or know information that I don't. But they are going to have to prove this fact in order to get some liability on Fox. Additionally, more facts I'd like to know. Where was Mark Sanchez coming from? Where was he going to? What was he doing? Was it a party that Fox put on and they overserved him and, you know, he left and he was going to another Fox event? Like, the more Fox stuff you can, you know, bring into this situation, the better for the plaintiff. But if he was there to call a game on Sunday and he worked, you know, Saturday prepping for the game, meeting with the teams, went out with some buddies and had some drinks and went down and did this.
Okay, I'm fully charged here.
What kind of a connection is there to Fox? Is he really on the clock? Is this really in the scope of his employment? Are they really on notice that they should be liable for what he's doing here? And that's why knowing about his background And if he does this on business trips and you do nothing to prevent it, despite this knowledge or the availability of this knowledge, that's important. How available is the knowledge? Defendant Fox Corporation hired defendant, meaning also like you're hiring somebody that's not fit. If you know you have a big, strong guy who likes to go beat people up when he gets drunk and you're sending him out on weekends to go to parties and drink and then he goes out and does this, you should be on notice for that. He's not fit to have this role and be this employee and be sent out and have the privilege of being sent out to do this job. And because you knew about that and sent him out anyways, it's now on you.
Damn right.
Is that how the facts are going to lay out? I don't know. But I'm trying to give you the idea of how do we get Fox hooked. There has to be a hook. If I work for my firm and I go out and, do something crazy, right? Go get on a boat on the weekend and cause an accident. I'm not going to sue my firm for that. It's nothing to do with me being a lawyer. Defendant Fox Corporation hired Defendant Sanchez as an employee, retained Defendant Sanchez as an employee, and or failed to supervise Defendant Sanchez in his capacity as an employee of the Defendant Fox Corporation. So, if you knew about this bad behavior, you should have had somebody supervising it. A handler of some sort. Something to protect other people from somebody you know is unfit, you know has alcohol problems, and you know is dangerous. That's what they're saying, right? Again, I'm not saying this about Mark Sanchez. This is what the complaint is saying, and this is what they're going to have to prove to connect these dots. Defendant Fox Corporation breached its duty of care to plaintiff Perry Toll, as set forth above, as a direct and proximate result of Defendant Fox Corporation's negligent hiring, retention, and or failure to supervise. Sometimes you'll see negligent training in there as well, or failure to train. Defendant Sanchez, to supervise its employee, Defendant Sanchez, plaintiff Perry Toll suffered severe permanent disfigurement, loss of function, other physical injuries, emotional distress, and other damages. So the severe and permanent disfigurement, it's going to be interesting if he pleads guilty or gets convicted of the current crimes he's charged with, that battery with serious bodily injury, that could be another admission. That could be another res judicata that he did not only commit the battery, so he's liable, but he caused, meaning causation, significant injury. So that could even take care of some of the other elements of negligence claims, causation and the significance of the damages. Now, you still always are going to have to prove the dollar number because you're not going to get that in criminal court. Restitution does not take into account everything that you can get in civil court to provide you full justice for what somebody does to you. Restitution is certain categories. You can get lost wages, you can get medical bills and things like that, but not pain and suffering, nothing in the future. It doesn't cover all medical.
Right after this, I'm going to come back with another live stream because I believe there's an update in the Cato Scott case. So once I finish this, we're going to have another live stream.
Bills. So there's plenty of things that you can't get in restitution that you can get in civil court. All right, what's the prayer for relief? This is what he's asking for. Wherefore, plaintiff Perry Toll, by counsel, respectfully request that this court enter judgment in his favor and against defendant Sanchez and Fox Corporation and award the following relief. Compensatory damages in an amount to be determined at trial. So usually there's a jurisdictional amount. I don't see that they pled it here. This complaint seems like it was put together pretty quickly. Does not have all the details and things that we would put in our complaints normally, but maybe it'll be amended, like I said. But compensatory damages will include a lot of what we've been talking about. His medical bills in the past that he's already had now resulting from this, the hospital. His medical bills in the future. Is he going to need some kind of plastic surgery on that gash across his cheek? Is he going to need any kind of injections or surgery or whatever on his neck, jaw? Who knows? Medical bills in the future. Pain and suffering in the past, pain and suffering in the future, lost wages in the past, loss of capacity to earn in the future. Does he have PTSD? Can he not mentally drive the truck anymore? Is he too worried about everybody he sees thinking they're going to jump him and beat him up? What type of emotional distress? Those are all compensatory damages. And then there's B, punitive damages. So because we have the battery charge, the intentional tort, that intentional conduct or grossly negligent conduct, that's how we get the punitive damages. Not all causes of action in civil court even allow you to ask for punitive damages. Some jurisdictions you actually have to prove up the case and then later request from the court, like in Florida, we have to request from the court later to amend, to add punitive damages, and we have to show the court how we got to this intentional conduct or grossly negligent conduct before we can even ask for punitive damages. Costs and expenses of this action, including reasonable attorney's fees, again, that's another one that Not all jurisdictions does the winner get attorney's fees. Some jurisdictions it does. Some jurisdictions also, there are certain causes of actions that statutorily give you attorney's fees, meaning the statute says if you win, the other side has to pay all your attorney's fees. Any other relief the court deems just and proper. And this was filed on 10/6. I think this happened on the early morning hours of 10/4, October 4th. Is that right?
How do products get from factories to your front door? That's supply chain. Start your career in this fast-growing field.
4th, is that right? On October 4th, yeah, 12:35 a.m. So what is that, Saturday? Early Saturday morning. Yeah, and this was filed on Monday. The first business day that you could file it. Incredibly fast. And I understand people are going to be out there saying, this is just a money grab, he's a rich defendant. This was always going to be a civil claim. This was always going to be a civil lawsuit. He was, if these allegations are true, both of these guys, right, whichever one of them is not the aggressor, whichever one of them was the victim in this scenario, has actual damages. They were both seriously injured. So a civil claim was always going to come. Why add Fox? You could say bigger pockets, sure. But in reality, multiple defendants, big corporation, probably insurance with Fox, always more likely to pay. Because Mark Sanchez's pockets are deep enough for a civil claim. But it is so much harder, I don't care how rich a defendant is, it is so much harder for somebody to reach their hand in their own pocket and stroke a check than for a big company or corporation or insurance company, whatever it may be, to pay it and make a business decision. Do I want to fight this? Do I want to pay lawyers to defend this? Do I want the negative publicity? This could be really bad. Like, his damages could be astronomical. If I can settle for a lower amount now, it's a business decision. A lot of times that can happen and big corporations can look at it like that. It's all a risk-reward balance. But when it's somebody personally, and when you have a criminal case going on, a lot of times that can be more difficult. So maybe they're thinking Fox is an easier target. At the same time, it's like, do they really care to pay lawyers? Big corporation, they'll fight this thing to death. They'll try to bleed the victim dry because most plaintiffs' attorneys are doing this contingency. They're not getting paid hourly. They're actually shelling out money for costs.
Mm-hmm.
So Fox being so big, having unlimited money basically, well, they just fight this to the death. Be like, let's see how long you can last. Let's see how desperate you are for money. I'll give you $5,000 today if you go away. So there's all sorts of things happening in the background and decisions being made strategically when these cases
Right.
happen. But it is an interesting civil lawsuit. I could probably think of some other causes of action depending on the facts. That's the problem. I like to get all the facts so I can think of every potential cause of action that I think I can prove by a greater weight of the evidence or preponderance of the evidence or 51%. Just like a criminal prosecutor, what I do on the civil side is client comes to me, they bring me all these facts, and I'm the one that's looking and say, okay, here's the causes of action that are appropriate here. Here's what I believe we can prove. Here's what I don't think we can prove and why. Let's see if we can get more evidence and information here while we're doing the investigation, while we're building up the case. In certain cases are pretty easy and pretty stock, at this point, whether it's a wrongful death or an injury as a result of a car accident or truck accident. A lot of those can have similarities, but the facts will be very different. Cases like this, there's nuance, and there's a lot of different potential civil causes of action that could be at play here, and these might not be the only two at the end of the day. As they do their investigation, which I'm willing to bet they're doing right now, and continuing to get information from law enforcement as they're investigating the criminal side, which they said their investigation is still ongoing, you could see causes of action added, causes of action removed, or some things changed in this complaint. So just remember, this might not be the final complaint. So let me know what other questions you guys had in the comments. Make sure you're subscribed. If you want to keep following the Mark Sanchez case, let me know by hitting that like button and telling me in the comments that you're here to stay, you're interested, you want to break down this case. That's all we got is a pretty quick review of a complaint. It wasn't the most complex complaint, but that's not always a bad thing. So tell me what you thought of it. But for me, that's all I got. Until next time, I'm out of here. Thanks for watching another episode of The Lawyer You Know. If you enjoyed the episode,
With that being said, I'll see y'all in a few minutes. Peace. Like, share, subscribe.